Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Kodanita Jaya Maya Purusha Shri Jaya Kodanita Jaya Maya Purusha Shri
Jaya Bhagavatam, Jaya Bhagavatam, Jaya
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada,
Swami Govinda ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Untitled Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Guru Premanand. Is there anything on the Vaishnava calendar today that we need to read about? Okay, so we can read that. There's usually something in the folder. Can you bring it, Brenda, please? Thank you. Appearance. Sri Lochandas Thakur was a disciple of Sri Narahari Sarkar Thakur. He wrote Chaitanya Mangal, which tells many pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, not revealed by Vrindavan Das Thakur or Krishnadas Kaviraj. Being a talented musician, Lochandas told Mahaprabhu's pastimes in beautiful poetry filled with fire and rhythm. Common people could easily understand the divine character of Sri Chaitanya and awaken their religious feelings. Srila Prabhupada was very fond of his bhajans. Anybody know any famous bhajans by Lochandas Thakur? Johnny? Paramakaruna. That's one of the most well known. Any others? Read a little from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. They don't do this in all the temples in ISKCON, but we choose to do it because we feel it's important that we keep focus on as being a preaching movement. Then we want to keep in touch with Prabhupada's mood and learn more about Prabhupada. So we can see that you've got Bhagavatam, the book, and Bhagavat, the person. And Prabhupada was certainly the living Bhagavatam. So this is Volume 6 of Prabhupada Lilamrita, Preaching to America, Part 2, Laguna Beach, July 25th, 1975. Laguna Beach was about a 2-hour drive south of Los Angeles. The temple, a house near the beach, was crowded with guests and visiting devotees. After Prabhupada had taken his seat upon newly upholstered Vyasasan, some of the temple leaders came forward one at a time and bathed his feet. In the course of his lecture, Prabhupada spoke against taking intoxicating drugs. Is there anyone here who can say, I am the controller? Is there anyone who will answer this? You may think that you're the controller, but you're controlled by drugs. The city of Laguna Beach was notorious as an illicit drug center. Prabhupada had come not to flatter anyone with sentimental spirituality, but to cut through their illusion. Bathing the feet of the spiritual master was good, but to be a genuine devotee, one had to strictly follow regulations. One had to choose whether to be controlled by drugs or by Krishna. When Prabhupada's speaking, he's trying to change people's lives. He doesn't want to just give them a nice day out to the temple. Prabhupada stayed next door to the temple in a neighbour's house. His first visitor was Rishi Das, who had given up his initiation vows and fallen away from Krishna consciousness. Sporting long curly hair and a beard, he had casually dropped by to pay a little visit to his former spiritual master. Prabhupada received Rishi warmly, and they both exchanged smiles and laughed. Rishi's demeanour, however, was brazen, almost defiant, and he showed no contrition. Prabhupada was not very happy to see the state of this boy to whom he had awarded the sannyas order a few years before. Earlier years, Prabhupada had cried when a dear disciple had left him. In those days, the fall of the disciple had been rare and almost unheard of. But over the years, Prabhupada had seen more casualties, even among his GBC leaders and sannyasis. In 1967, when one of his first disciples, Krishna Devi Dasi, had left her husband Subala and gone off with a boyfriend, Prabhupada consoled Subala by reminding him how rare it was that one could become a devotee of Krishna. The wonderful thing is not that Krishna Dasi has left, Srila Prabhupada said, but that we can stay in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 6, entitled Activities of Lord Shabdev, text number 19. Nityanubhuta Nija Labha Nivrita Krishna Nityanubhuta Nija Labha Nivrita Krishna Shreyasi Atad Tachanaya Chira Sukta Buddhi Shreyasya Tadvachanaya Chira Supta Buddhi Lokasya Ya Karunaya Bhayam Atmalokam Lokasya Ya Karunaya Bhayam Atmalokam Akyan Namo Bhagavate Rishabhaya Tasmai Akyan Namo Bhagavate Rishabhaya Tasmai Nityanubhuta Nijalabha Nivrita Trishna Nityanubhuta Nijalabha Nivrita Trishna Shreya Shatad Rachanaya Chira Supta Buddhi Shreyasya tadrachanaya chirasupta buddhe Lokashaya karunaya vayamatma lokam Lokashaya karunaya vayamatma lokam Akyan namo bhagavate rishabhaya tasmai Akyan namo bhagavate rishabhaya tasmai Nitya bhuta nijalabha nivritatri Nitya nibhuta nijalabha nivrita trishna Shreyasya tadrachanaya chirasukta buddhe Lokashaya karunaya vayam atma lokam Akyan namo bhagavate rishabhaya tasmai
Nityana Bhuta Nijalava Nivritta Krishna Shreyasya Tata Chanaya Shivasutta Lokasya Karunaya Vayamakaloka Akyanamo Bhagavate Vishavaya Tasmai Nityana Bhuta Nijalava Nivritta Krishna Shreyasya Tadrachanaya Chirasutta Buddhe Lokasya Karunaya Vayamatmaloka Akyam Namo Bhagavate Vishavaya Tasmai
Ladies. Nitya Anubhuta, due to being always conscious of his real identity. Nijalabha Nivrita Trishna, who was complete in himself and had no other desire to fulfill. Shreyasi, in life's genuine welfare. Atat Rachanaya, by expanding activities in the material field, mistaking the body for the self. Chira, for a long time. Supta, sleeping. Buddhi, by whose intelligence. Lokasya, of men. Ya, who, Lord Rishabdev. Karunaya, by his causeless mercy. Abhayam, fearlessness. Atmalokam, the real identity of the self. Akyat, instructed. Nama, Respectful obeisances. Bhagavatam. Unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rishabhaya. Unto Lord Rishabdev. Tasmai. Unto him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabdev, was fully aware of his true identity. Therefore he was self-sufficient and he did not desire external gratification. There was no need for him to aspire for success, since he was complete in himself. Those who unnecessarily engage in bodily conceptions and create an atmosphere of materialism are always ignorant of their real self-interest. Out of his causeless mercy, Lord Rishabdev taught the self's real identity and the goal of life. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the Lord who appeared as Lord Rishabdev. Please repeat: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabdev, was fully aware of his true identity. Therefore he was self-sufficient, and he did not desire external gratification. There was no need for him to aspire for success, since he was complete in himself. Those who unnecessarily engage in bodily conceptions and create an atmosphere of materialism are always ignorant of their real self-interest. Out of his causeless mercy, Lord Rishabdev taught the self's real identity and the goal of life. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the Lord who appeared as Lord Rishabdev. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is the summary of this chapter, in which the activities of Lord Rishabdev are described. Being the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Lord Rishabdev is complete in himself. We living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, should follow the instructions of Lord Rishabdev and become self-sufficient. We should not create unnecessary demands due to the bodily conception. When one is self-realized, he is sufficiently satisfied due to being situated in his original spiritual position. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1854, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashochati Nakanchati. This is the goal of all living entities. Even though one may be situated within this material world, he can become fully satisfied and devoid of hankering and lamentation simply by following the instructions of the Lord as set forth in Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Satisfaction through self-realization is called Swarupananda. The conditioned soul externally sleeping in darkness does not understand his self-interest. He simply tries to become happy by making material adjustments, but this is impossible. It is therefore said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Na te vidu swartagatim hi vishnum. Due to gross ignorance, the conditioned soul does not know that his real self-interest is to take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. To try to become happy by adjusting the material atmosphere is a useless endeavour. Indeed, it is impossible. By his personal behaviour and instructions, Lord Rishabdev enlightened the conditioned soul and showed him how to become self-sufficient in spiritual identity. The Ascend Bhagavatam, the purports of 5th Canto, 6th Chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of Lord Rishabdev. Om Gyantimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakramritam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vakam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dintaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabdev, was fully aware of his true identity. Therefore, he was self-sufficient and he did not desire external gratification. There was no need for him to aspire for success, since he was complete in himself. Those who unnecessarily engage in bodily conceptions and create an atmosphere of materialism are always ignorant of their real self-interest. Out of his causeless mercy, Lord Rishabdev taught the self's real identity and the goal of life. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the Lord who appeared as Lord Rishabdev. An enlightened being is not satisfied simply to be self-satisfied. Therefore, out of his causeless mercy, Prabhupada mentions here, and it's mentioned in the actual verse as well, that out of his causeless mercy he taught this actual goal of human life, to fulfill the actual purpose of the human form of life, was self-realization. And that one should not chase, as Prabhupada calls it, the will o' the wisp. Can anyone tell me what's meant by that, the will o' the wisp? Javit?
It's before there was like street lights and lots of people would have to go through marshy areas to travel sometimes, and sometimes there was like gases rising from the marsh and it would ignite and it would flash around. It wasn't a sort of reliable source of illumination. It's just like that's what it was called.
Perfect explanation of will o' the wisp. So basically it means like in marshy, boggy areas, sometimes gases, if you didn't hear that, the gases would arise and ignite. And it would appear to be some kind of interesting thing that sometimes people would pursue it, but sometimes they'd follow the will o' the wisp, these little magical lights, and then they'd find themselves in difficulty getting stuck in a bog or a swamp. So that's why Prabhupada used that term, is that we're following. Or the other one he mentions is like fireflies in the night trying to give some illumination. You know, if you're out in the dark, and you don't get them so much here in this country because it's not warm enough, but in some countries you get these flies which illuminate at night time. Now, if it's so dark and we think that we're going to follow a firefly because there's some light there, then the firefly also has no actual direction, it's just flying here and there, just following its senses. And it can actually give any real illumination. And for sure, if you just simply follow that and put your trust in that, then you're going to fall over something or fall into something. So similarly, the material knowledge which people take shelter in, particularly in Kali Yuga, as there is advancement in scientific achievements, undoubtedly there's many scientific advancements there which we all take advantage of, and we can use in Krishna's service, but we don't allow them to become a distraction from what our purpose is for using them. And therefore, the utilization of these things is permissible, but at the same time, Krishna consciousness won't be stopped if these modern conveniences aren't there. So just for example, back in the day, they used to write books on palm leaves. Historically, people would write their scriptures on papyrus and various other things, sometimes even on skin, which is quite one of the big ones. Putting holy scriptures on the skin of some slaughtered animal is not exactly a good start, is it? Especially when the religion is basically instructing us not to follow a path of violence. Any religion would tell that. We find that essential teaching is there. So following the will of the wisp, that's just like following something which is in the guise of knowledge or enlightenment, but actually which is going to lead to some danger. It's going to put us in difficulty down the road, further down. So self-realization means that we're not continually just seeking a material solution to things. Naturally, we make some material adjustments, like if it's very cold, we don't just think, oh, I'm not making a material adjustment, I'm just going to go around in my shorts and flip-flops. You know, that kind of application is not very smart. Because we have a material body, we have to keep it healthy so that we can continue with our Krishna consciousness. So make a certain amount of material adjustments, but we're not endlessly chasing a perfect adjustment where we will mitigate all miseries, because as long as we have a material body, then there are 3 types of miseries. So can anybody name one of them? John, I think you know some of these, don't you? 3-fold miseries.
Adhyatmic calculation.
Which is?
I think it's that's the one from the mind.
From the body and the mind.
From the body and the mind.
Yeah. Adhyatmika. So Atma means the self. Adhyatmika. Klesha means misery. So Atma, sometimes the self is referred to the spiritual self, or it can be referred to the mind or to the body, depending on the context. So misery comes from the body and the mind. And John, can you give another one? Sanskrit or English?
Miseries from natural phenomena.
Yeah. Does anybody know the Sanskrit for that?
Adhyadayika.
Adhyadayika. Misery is coming from natural phenomena. So the Daivika, Daiva means Deva, or the demigods. Misery is coming from who are controlling natural phenomena, such as heat, light, cold, wind, rain, these elements. So these things are being controlled by the demigods, and we can't necessarily avoid them. And the last one, anyone? Johnny?
The miseries that arise from other living entities.
Yeah, and that's called
Adhyabautika.
Adibodhika.
Adibodhika. Thanks very much. Adibodhika klesha. So the Bodhika means Buddha, like the living entities. Sometimes it means the earth, sometimes it means living entities. So miseries arising from other living entities. So these can be in the form of physical. Sometimes we're inflicted miseries physically by other living entities, and it might not necessarily be a tiger in the jungle. It could be a midgie in Scotland, a tiny little insignificant insect, and they'll come in swarms and they'll cause you so much difficulty. Or it can become also from some kind of mental anxiety from other living entities. Sometimes someone decides they're going to give you some difficulty and make your life miserable, or sometimes just by someone else's negligence, then we are neglected and our life becomes difficult, or someone decides they're going to impose some legal or financial levy on us some way or another. So while we're in the material world, there's always the aspect of any one or more of these things assaulting us at any time. And sometimes we get all of them at the same time. I remember once, not actually more than once, but one time in particular, I remember being in Edinburgh, and I was just taking books at the bridges in Edinburgh. It was very cold and wet, and I had a cold also, and people were being quite rude to me. So I was getting miseries from the natural phenomena, other living entities, and my own body and mind. My mind was giving me trouble as well. Oh, why are you standing out here in this austere situation? And I remembered, well, I'm doing it to please Guru and Krishna. This is why we take on some austerities. But then a few months later, in the same place, standing there, people are being nice, the weather's good, you feel good, there's not much misery. So Prabhupada said that we don't have to seek out austerities. Preaching or sharing Krishna consciousness is our austerity, because this is the main duty of a devotee, is to share the Krishna consciousness just as much as one who finds a cure for a disease. Then it's the natural duty, intrinsic duty, that they should share that disease. And people do that. If they find Like say someone says, oh, I've got a toothache, and then say, oh, have you tried clove oil, have you tried this, have you tried that? So immediately people want to offer because they found something that worked for them, and that's natural. Unless, of course, they're really nasty and they wouldn't say anything, yeah, I tried this, but I'm not telling you because I want you to suffer, then what kind of mentality is that? So this is a devotee, they're not happy simply to be finding relief from material miseries themselves, but they can see others suffering. So out of his causeless mercy, then Lord Rishabdev was teaching this path of self-realization to others. And it's called self-realization because it's for us as individuals. It's not that we hear about Krishna consciousness and then start telling everybody, okay, you need to get your act together, you've got to stop falling asleep in class, you've got to sit up straight, you've got to get off your phone, you've got to not put your feet to the deities. No, it's not like simply that. It's like, you don't wash your face properly, or you stink, or so many other things, or the way you speak is like this. No, it's not for everyone else to do that. Now, Prabhupada is a spiritual master, or the spiritual master, or the spiritual master's representative. Then they may be in the service of where they have to train people, they have to correct them so that they can become a better devotee. But our main concern is self-realization. We've got plenty of work to do ourselves, on ourselves, without having to consider the work that other people need to do on themselves. So are we sometimes we might think, well, that devotee is so materialistic, or that person is, but what about ourselves? Are we materialistic? We constantly looking for ways to improve our material lot. If we are, then in the purport here, it's been mentioned that we shouldn't create unnecessary demands due to the bodily conception. So yeah, we're not fully self-realized at this point in time. Some days are better than others. But we face so many challenges to try to simplify our life. Simple living, high thinking. So it's very difficult in Kali Yuga to be a devotee because simply to make ends meet, then we have to work so many hours in the day, and there's not much time left for self-realization, unless of course your work is directly connected with Krishna consciousness. And if it's not, then we utilize whatever time we have spare for our Krishna consciousness development. And if we have some extra financial resources after we've made ends meet, then we can spiritualize the time we spent at our work by donating that for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. This is what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. Basically, we should surrender completely to him, but if we can't do that, then at least give up the results of our actions to serve that purpose of helping others come to Krishna consciousness. And then it means that our time is not wasted. So time is much more valuable than money. We can't buy back time, not 1 second for all the money. Even Bill Gates or someone like that, if he came to the temple and said, I'll give you $10 billion, just give me an extra year to live, because everyone's going to pass at some time, so sometime when he comes near to death, he says, I'll give you all the money I've got, just give me another year. It wouldn't make any difference. Krishna can do anything, of course, but he can say if he was to go to the doctors and say, give you all this money, maybe they will take it and they'll say, oh yeah, we'll try, but nobody can guarantee. As Hridaya Maharaj once said that even if Queen Elizabeth with the Royal Navy shows up at the time of death, she can't stop anything. So this is one of the hard facts of life, is that death is certain. Krishna explains, for one who has died, birth is certain, and for one who is born, death is certain. So therefore, knowing that, we have to find out what is the best use of this life, so that when it comes to the end, there's no regrets. We've used our time properly. We haven't just allowed ourselves to become distracted all our life and then think, oh no, I've wasted another one. And then back we go around the merry-go-round of samsara. So of course, if Krishna wants us to take birth again, then that's up to Krishna. just like we were reading 2 verses ago, that the devotee, when they're assailed by material miseries, they simply take a bath in devotional service, which means they become immersed in devotional service. So just as a materialist, they want the relief from their material miseries by mukti, or liberation. They simply want the end of the material miseries. But a devotee, even if Krishna himself comes and offers liberation, the devotee says, no, I'd rather have devotional service. Now, why would a devotee do that? Anybody? Why would a devotee refuse liberation and ask for service instead?
Because the devotee's experience of the taste derived from performing devotional service is greater than the apparent taste of freedom from material suffering.
Yeah. But even if I'm not experiencing that higher taste yet, because we hear about it and think, yeah, but I'm not exactly experiencing that complete taste, or I'm floating around in an ocean of bliss, and I wouldn't mind some liberation from these threefold miseries. So we might, to eradicate that doubt, then the thing is that simply a devotee, whatever stage they're in, is trying to please Krishna over above pleasing themselves. And mukti, or liberation, is a personal desire. It's like, I want liberated, I want. Even one devotee decided he was going to chant extra rounds and live in a tree, and Prabhupada says he wants to do this, he wants to do that. I want is sense gratification. What does his spiritual master want? The spiritual master says, I want you to chant 16 rounds, not 64 rounds, and go and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Then that's better situated than deciding himself what he should do. So this is what is meant by following the spiritual master. Of course, however, if the spiritual master tells you to chant 64 rounds, so it's better to perform one's prescribed duty. That's the important thing. And even if it takes, yeah, of course, being liberated in the Brahmajyoti, or the eternal oneness, which sometimes the Mayavadis and personalists aim for, then it's temporary. One has to come back down again, just as the example Prabhupada gives, that an astronaut is in the sky, he's in space, but he has no resting place, so he has to come back. So the spirit soul, because their eternal nature is Krishna and Nityadas, their eternal nature is servant of Krishna, eternal full of bliss and knowledge, then they cannot actually be satisfied in that situation. And Prabhupada likens it to spiritual suicide. Sometimes people are so much suffering, they undergo so much suffering, that they just decide, well, one more piece of suffering, let's just finish it. And then they kill the body. But then they don't realise that they've only killed the body, and the real misery is actually going on in the mind, so they make matters worse. So that's most unfortunate. People don't know that. They don't know there's something beyond the body. So the so-called knowledge relating to the body, which keeps people confined to the bodily consciousness, is actually such a big disservice to people in every way, because they're continually hankering, lamenting, creating artificial needs, advertising things which people don't need. You've already got a phone, why you need a new one? No, it works, doesn't it? It does the job. Why you need to go and get a mortgage to get a phone? Why are you feeling the need to be pushed into this? Why are you hankering for it? In fact, some people are so smart, they're going back the way where they're just getting a really simple phone, which just sends a text and does a phone call, pay as you go. This is, of course, as we say, we can use anything Krishna's service. We're saying that if you can use something technological wonder in Krishna's service, not that you should go back to using something simple. And so it's a matter of the utilization of it. Just like now we're using a microphone, we're using online facilities. So this is utilization, yukta and vairagya, renunciation through utilization. But we're not attached to it. It's not that unless the microphone's here or unless the internet's there, we're not giving Bhagavatam class. In Bhagavatam class, was going on since it was spoken 5,000 years ago, and it's going on since. It'll go on again for another 10,000 years at least. So Krishna consciousness is not dependent upon anything material, and we see that Prabhupada proved that. What materials did he bring with him to the West? A bag of cereal and some books. That was it. And a few rupees, which amounted to practically about 50p now or something. What did they have? Like how many rupees? 40 rupees, 80 rupees, something like that. It's not even a pound. Okay, so Felix, I want you to go and find a country where there's no Krishna consciousness there, and I'll give you a box of cornflakes and 50p, and you go and start a worldwide movement. Within 11 years, we'll need to have at least 5,000 disciples. What do you think? A bit of a tough call? £1.50. You want an extra pound? Just see, he wants to expand his material facilities already. So Prabhupada showed us an amazing example just by depending on Krishna. With full faith, everything will come. And this is sometimes the difficulty we have, is because we're so conditioned into putting our faith in material energy that we become blind to putting our faith in Krishna. We think, oh, I can't do that. I need to see where I'm going before I'm going to put my foot forward. But if Krishna is leading the way, then we have faith in Krishna. But we keep on making our own material adjustments, and therefore we sacrifice the opportunity to become more Krishna conscious. Or someone gives us some good advice and say, yes, but. So yes, but means yes, but no. Oh, yes, but. Which means, yes, I agree with you, but I don't agree with you. So really, us and our spiritual advancement is dependent not on what anyone else is doing, or what they're not doing, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't have done. It actually depends on our desire, nothing more. No one can stop us being a devotee. There may be some challenges there, but these challenges are there to make us a devotee. So whatever challenges we have, it's our challenge, the condition is ours to overcome. And if we have some difficulty with these challenges, simply go to another devotee and say, I'm having a bit difficult with this, can you give me some advice? And then try to put that in practice. If someone gives us good advice and we don't put it into practice, then we can't go back and say, oh, it doesn't work. And sometimes we do that. Someone gives us good instruction, and then we become frustrated or despondent because we're not getting anywhere. The truth of the matter is, we're not really hearing. Hearing means that we hear it, we take it to heart, we really contemplate it, and we try to figure out how to put it into practice. We put it into practice, and then when we realize, yeah, that works, then we can give it to other people. So this is the process of advancing Krishna consciousness and following the footsteps of Lord Rishabhdev, where we share Krishna consciousness by sometimes putting ourselves into situations which are a bit uncomfortable so that others can get this unparalleled knowledge for their spiritual advancement. So we'll just stop there. Anyone, any comments or questions, please? Okay, it's going to move into key. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.